أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم وعلى بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين صاحب العصر والزمان خليفة الرحمن إمام الإنس والجان ولعن الله وعداهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا عليكم أنفسكم صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the continued tawfiq to fast in the month of Ramadan, to worship Him, to gain His proximity, to have our sins forgiven, inshaAllah. And we ask Allah to accept our amal and to shower us with His continuous blessings in this month of Ramadan. As I mentioned to all of you last night, I will be with you from now until the ending of the month of Ramadan. And last night was a discussion on the dedication on Imam Hassan Mujtaba alayhi salatu wasalam and his jashan and his day of wiladat. And today we begin our topic. And the topic that's been floating around on the posters that's been kind of advertised is a view from within, an analysis of the self. And let me spend today's introductory base building discussion to let you know what I want to cover with all of you in the next 2 weeks. The ulama of akhlaq have said that, and this is backed up by our hadith as well, that one of the most azim and precious and valuable skill set, or in terms of knowledge that we can have, is the knowledge of the self, as ilmun nafs. And in this era that we live in, where it appears as if, and maybe I'm wrong, it appears as if the numbing devices are increasing around us, that the moment that anybody attempts to kind of search within and truly kind of travel within to change themselves, there seems to be an abundant amount of numbing devices around them to take them away from that process. In the process, we end up not knowing who we are. We don't know what our weaknesses are. We don't know what our strengths are. We may be able to identify the strengths and weaknesses of others around us, our spouses, our children, our siblings, our kids, our parents, our community members, our cousins, whatever the case may be. But when it comes time for us to truly kind of do some introspection of ourselves, either we get lost or we get intimidated or we simply don't want to do it. Because part of the process of introspection and self-thought and some tafakkur and contemplation is the fact that we're all bound to come to a conclusion that I simply don't do enough for God. And that level of deficiency in the eyes of God, in the eyes of ourself for God, is something that we just don't want to face. So it's a lot easier for me to prescribe solutions for A, B, and C outside of me. Very difficult for me to prescribe anything for myself. So we have solutions for everybody around us, don't we? We have advice for everyone around us, but we don't have advice for ourselves. We don't even know where to start. A lot of it has to do with the fact we just don't know ourselves. And what I want to do in the first couple of discussions is discuss the idea of what the self is. What is I? When we say I, this I-ness as they refer to in philosophy. But before that, however, let's understand why is there such ahmiyat and importance given to the knowledge of the self, this ilmun nafs. And the example I'll give you is that of Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayh. In his Adab al-Salat book, Etiquettes of Prayer, A beautiful book, a very profound, mystical book, no doubt. In the beginning few chapters, close to 16 to 17 chapters, before he actually gets to the parts of salat, the takbir, the ruku, the sujood, he talks about 17 to 18 different preliminary concepts to first talk about before we can even enter the discussion on the form of salat itself. And one of them he talks about is what's called izzat al-rububiyat and dhillat al-ubudiyat. Okay, the idea of giving your Rabb his proper izzat and ensuring that you remind yourself of the fact that you being zalil in the sense of an abd and a slave, lowering yourself in front of that master is the essence of ubudiyat. Having takabbur, having an ego and still trying to be a slave of Allah is almost impossible to achieve. So on one breath he says izzati rububiyat and dhillati ubudiyat. The idea of us elevating the Rabb where he is now worthy of worship. We see him as the ultimate ma'bud and not just somebody who will grant me heaven or somebody who will protect me from hell, but honestly that ibadat of the ahrar that Imam talks about, the free individual, free from the chains of desire, free from the clutches of fear, the chain of desire of heaven, the clutches of the fear of hell. And while, if you have been somebody your whole life who has worshipped Allah with the hopes of getting is that of a person who is completely free. Right? So we want to get to that stage where we break the shackles of that and we see Allah as the true ma'bud, who's layiq of my worship, who's layiq of my subservience and my ubudiyat. To understand and to get to that stage, right, we have to understand our capacity and who we are. Okay? So, there's always a lot of talk, guys, a lot of talk about this person and that person and he and she and them. There's hardly ever a talk about me, even within our families, right? Like sometimes when I do some marriage counseling, couple counseling, one spouse has the plan, the program, all the right solutions that the other spouse should follow. And that other spouse has the entire list of things that this spouse should follow. And when I sit there and I tell them, what are you working on? There's a little bit of silence on the phone. And it goes to the idea that we just have not entered this realm of me yet. It's daunting, it's scary, I just don't want to do it. And the problem is that if we are that vehicle that gets to Allah, it's important that we examine that. And that's why part of this izzati rububiyyat, the dhillati ubudiyat discussion is, he says that Imam Khomeini refers to constantly as a journey, right? A sayr and suluk, that we are on a journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for every journey, you need a wasila, right? You need something to take you on that journey. So the example I'll give you is a very simple one. The example is that, for example, you want to rent a car or you want to take a car for a long journey. Let's say you're going on a long drive, right? Let's say you're, Montreal, or let's say you're driving across the country to Vancouver, for example. And now you are presented this car that will take you to Vancouver. Well, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to check up and down the car. You're going to check the tires. You're going to check to make sure that there's gas in the car, the brakes and the engine, and maybe even get your mechanic to check it out. If you're not renting a car, make sure that your car is able to get to that destination. You have to know how fast it can go. You have to know how to apply the brakes. You have to know what to do, what not to do. You have to know its capacities. You have to know all these things, strength, weaknesses, everything. Why? Because that's the wasila. That is that car that will take you to your destination. If you just hop into a car not knowing exactly what the car is and what its problems are, what its struggles are, and you end up going halfway to the journey and the car breaks down, well, that requires, of course, a strong level of iman and faith to go back and restart the journey again. It would have made more sense for us to examine the car, know the car, and then begin the journey. knowing full well, look, this car can take me to Vancouver. If it doesn't, then I need to go and either strengthen this car, fix the brakes, get better tires on there, or altogether get another car. He says that we're no different. On this journey towards Allah, we are our own wasila. We are the car that is going towards Allah. Our body, our soul are the very things that takes us towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we don't know the wasila, if we don't know the motive or that purpose or that thing that's taking us towards on that journey, then how will we know if we'll ever get to the journey or not? It's important that we the same way I'll check the brakes, I'll check the tire pressure, I'll make sure all the fluids are topped up, I'll do the oil change, the tune up, all these things to make sure that, okay, is it low on oil? How are the tire pressures? Blah, 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 this and that. We never just hop into a car and say, let's go, let's drive, it's a 4 or 5 day, sometimes a week long road trip to Vancouver. No one does that. For a 7-day road trip, we do so much analysis of the car. For an eternal journey towards Allah, how much have we checked up on the car, meaning us, ourselves? We're the salik. We're the ones who are on the journey. And the suluk is the path, right? And the journey is the sayr. We have to ensure that we're able now to identify, what is in this car, what is not in this car, what can I expect in this car? Right? If I have, let's say, a patch of free land on a highway, can I go 140 on this car, or will the whole thing start to shake? If not, then don't push to 140. Go 120. Right? It's not a reason for you to push it beyond, but you have to know the fact that at 140 the car won't survive. You have to know the fact that if the gas gets down to a quarter left, make sure you fill it. Right? You should know the idea that you shouldn't slam on the brakes. The brake pads aren't all these things. We equally should know what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are. How we can identify what our capacity is. How fast can I go? How slow can I go? Right? Should I ease up? Should I put that pressure? All without knowing that and beginning our journey towards Allah, we might end up halfway through the journey saying, I can't do it, and so I'm out. And then we leave the deen. We denounce the religion. We have this distaste in my mouth for the religion. Well, you shouldn't have began the journey to begin with without truly and strengthening yourself to begin with. And that's knowing yourself. Oh, you who believe, look after yourself. Alaykum anfusikum. Look after yourself. Know yourself. Right? So I want to examine this for the next 2 weeks. Talk about everything. From our ego to our pride to the faults inside of us, the greatness inside of us, the capacity inside of us, what we can achieve, right? All of this entire month of Ramadan, if it can be kind of summarized in one specific discussion, it is that Allah is showing you what kind of car you have. Allah is showing you what kind of person you are to get towards Allah. You end up doing things in the month of Ramadan that you just simply can't do. You end up sacrificing things that you wouldn't sacrifice outside the month of Ramadan. You end up spending more time for this act. That same act just got buried in your to-do list on every other month of the year. All of that is to show you, look, if you just push the car a little bit, it can go 130. If you add a little bit of this oil, it can not shake at 140. If you make sure that the front tire is always, for example, inflated, you can go for a long time. If you put this type of gas in, you can go an extra 100 kilometers. But all of that requires you to open up the manual and read about the car you're about to drive. I'm going to kill this example throughout this whole speech, but I want you to understand we are on a journey. And that journey sometimes is blocked by us. He again says in that same discussion, Imam Khomeini, that inside the world of fiqh, it's such a beautiful discussion, so philosophical. Right? That he says that in this idea of a journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're considered a musafir in the sharia of the deen. Nowadays it's easy, right? You have a calculation. But back then, when there wasn't so many miles and kilometers and and distances in terms of like measuring the distance, they would essentially go based on two factors. To identify, are you a musafir shar'an, meaning is your salat qasr, or are you muqim? Are you still a part of that land? How they do it? They do it through two things. Number one is if they could no longer see the walls of the city, meaning the city is not visible anymore, then they know that they are a musafir. Number two, Imam Khomeini says that if they can't hear the adhan from the masjid of the city, then you know that you are a musafir. You're far enough now to be considered a traveler, so your fasting and your salat, all that is affected. It all takes on the fiqhi rulings of a musafir. All right? He says that equally in our journey as well, we have to have signs of a journey. Someone has to tell us that we are, yes, that we are individuals who are journeying, who are on a safar, who are a musafir. What is that journey? When, just like in a physical city, we stop to see the walls. The moment we don't see the walls of the city, we know that we are traveling. Same idea. When we stop to hear the ego of the I inside of me. When I stop to hear the adhan, if that adhan is a call to prayer, there's a nafs inside of me that's calling me towards shaitan. When I begin to not hear the adhan of shaitan inside of me, metaphorical now, right? It's all symbolic, right? If we want to, nobody stays at home and says, yeah, I'm traveling. No, you're not. Right now, right now, I'm in my home right now. I'm not traveling anywhere. The first Ramadan in 10 years I've been home. I'm there for the first 2 weeks, and I'm, if someone's saying, oh, Syed, are you traveling? I wouldn't say, yeah, I'm traveling, but I'm sitting in my home. No, you have to leave the house and go so far that you're no longer part of the area that you're in. That comfort zone that you're in, you're now a musafir. Part of the reason why the salat is cut in half sometimes is because in safar, in journey, you're out of your element, you're out of your comfort zone. So Allah says, I don't wish to make things hard on you. But in order for you to be considered a musafir, a salik, a journeyman, there are certain conditions that have to be met. Talked about walls and the adhan. In this discussion of us and Allah and ubudiyat now, and dhillati ubudiyat, part of it is that you stop seeing the walls of the ana inside of you. You stop hearing the adhan that's calling you toward your nafs ammara. When that begins to happen, then you can say, I'm traveling towards Allah. Sitting at your home, in your comfort zone, for example, sitting in that same zone that you've been at for many, many years, say, I'm traveling towards Allah. No, fine, you're not going down either. You're not regressing, you're not progressing either. But we're trying to travel towards Allah. We're trying to get up towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that requires us to know ourself, to understand ourself. And yes, sometimes that is a very uncomfortable conversation. Because like I said, one of the things that sometimes deters us, it's a motivator, it's a deterrence as well, is the idea of fear, right? Is the idea of fear. Fear of what? Fear of not knowing what this journey might entail. I mentioned this, before as well. Sometimes we have this fear of change. I had a live session with the New Jersey community in the first half of Ramadan. There, I mentioned the idea that sometimes we don't even begin the process of change within ourselves because we're scared of the effect of that. I don't know what this may result in, Maulana, so I'm not even going to attempt it. I don't know how my wife will react. I don't know how my husband will react. I don't know how anybody around me. Will I lose friends? Will my cousins stop talking to me? Will I stop being invited to the fun parties? All because I took on this new spirituality. And because I don't know that fear causes me to retreat into my comfort zone. Okay? Retreat into my comfort and say, you know what? I'm good. I've been like this for many, many years. And you become, the Quran says, the ahle kusal. The people who are spiritually lazy. I become someone who's spiritually lazy. Not lazy in terms of not doing anything. Lazy in the sense that, look, I'm okay where I am. I don't want to travel. I'm okay where I am. I've come this far. I think I'm pretty good. This complacency that we have. Right? This idea that I don't want to budge from where I am. All because of what? A fear of the unknown. Right? Meanwhile, Allah is saying, look, journey. Inch by inch, come towards me, travel towards me, right? Fly towards Allah, right? This is all perishable. Kullu man alayha fan. Everything is perishable. If you want to be baqi, connect yourself to the wajh of Allah. But we can't be journeymen. or individuals on a journey or on a suluk or on some sort of a journey, if we don't leave our comfort zone and begin now to to enter unfamiliar territory. So if that means beginning to wear hijab, if that means stopping to going to mixed gatherings, if that means that music is no longer part of my life, if that means that now I'm going to stop getting angry and yelling and screaming, if that means I'm going to kick this addiction, if that means I'm going to start doing this, let's say, for example, one juz of the Quran every single day. And now in Shawwal too, even on the day of Eid, in between the biryani, we have one juz of the Quran as well. It's possible. But that fear that, and sometimes I tell you, I get phone calls, and I mentioned before, I get phone calls from wives sometimes that say, Malana, I want to wear hijab, but my husband says, look, if you wear hijab, I don't want anything to do with you. I married you, part of the reason why I married you was because you don't wear hijab. Okay, I prefer my wife to look good when we leave outside the house, right? When we go outside somewhere, and now she sucked. Do I upset my Lord, or do I upset my husband? Right? And that fear that what's going to happen to my marriage and my family, retreat back to your comfort zone. I tried Malana, hijab wasn't for me. Okay. Meanwhile, success, spirituality, our own fitrat, our own sort of this idea of zillat ubudiyat, right? Inside of us, this desire to worship something at perfection is screaming at us, look, let's venture out of our comfort zone. All of this happens where, guys? Not outside of us. It all happens inside of us. Inside of us. Inside of us. Right? We have given too much power to those things that are external. I've said it all, this whole seclusion era. Too much power to the external and not enough ahmiyat and importance to the internal. You don't need to travel outside. Everything is inside. And yes, part of it also is that the deficiencies also are inside as well. Imam says the sickness is inside of you, and its ilaj and treatment is also inside of you. It's okay to say this part of me is sick. This part of me has faults. I am a person who allows my tongue to get out of control. I'm somebody who's very impatient. I'm somebody who's very greedy. I'm somebody who's very bakhil, right, and stingy and conjuice. I'm somebody who, for example, loves to be propagated and elevated. I'm all these different deficiencies, and that's that awkwardness that leads to salvation. It's never easy, right? It's never easy to travel. All the planning you do, we went to India last year, me and my entire family, right? I took all my kids. And the planning began months before. And there were moments where, oh my God, we're surrounded by suitcases and this and that and the weight, and one is 54 kilos, one is 23 kilos, you're just like, oh my God, I just want to get to the plane. Just get that momentary discomfort, that momentary kind of shulug and kind of, chaotic chaos leads you to the point where you're sitting there, mashallah, surrounded by family in Hyderabad or in India. So there will be a moment of discomfort. But the Quran says, وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُ شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. It could be that is something that you don't like, but in it there's khair for you. There's good for you in it. Just don't be afraid to be uncomfortable. Discomfort doesn't always mean it's wrong for you. Sometimes this Western society talks about your feelings. If it doesn't feel good, leave it. Drop it. Because everything is about how you feel about it. Sometimes we don't know how we feel because we don't know ourselves. We get through the month of Ramadan, we do everything, we're sleep deprived, we're food deprived, but somehow we have this glorious month and I feel amazing. Yes, I was uncomfortable. Yes, I was hungry. I was thirsty. I was constantly sleepy. My head was constantly hurting. My throat was dry from speaking. Of course, that's discomfort. But if I gained 1 inch towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that's exactly what I wanted to do. Traveling within, knowing the self, knowing the I inside of me, the man, the ana, the me inside of me is ideal. It is the wasila towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we have to understand that if we want to climb on this path and go towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to break free of our comfort zone. and sacrifice things and change things and look at things in a deep rooted introspective level. Not allow others to tell me what's wrong with me, not allow others to tell me how good of a believer I am, not allow others to tell me the beauty in me, the ugliness inside of me. No, all that happens when I have the view from within. Let's turn the view inside. Let's find out these next 2 weeks what is inside of us. There's a complex being inside of us. There are powers that are opposite, polar opposite forces. Why are those in there to begin with? How can I manage them? All these things we'll discuss in the next 2 weeks. But as a discussion in this introductory speech, it's important that we understand the ahmiyat of ilm nafs. This is that ilm that leads us to our perfection. If we don't travel through this ilm, we won't reach that destination and that purpose, and we end up wandering around this world aimlessly. And we've seen the people like that who have no purpose, who deny Allah, who deny that purpose. فَصِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَانْظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Allah says, travel the earth, look around, فَانْظُرُوا, look around. Look at the ultimate destiny of those who deny Allah, who lied to themselves about Allah. Where are they now? And we don't wish that upon any of us. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to accept our qaleel efforts. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that in this month of awareness, in this month of ma'arifat, that you give us that tawfiq to understand ourselves in this month, to understand who the I is, who I am, and then use that I-ness, as they call it, towards my final destination, being Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.